fucking think after 23 episodes I'd actually remember to record, but no, apparently not.
Mate, 38. 38 episodes.
Yeah, it's just don't forget our 15-episode prequel series.
Yeah, season 0.
Season 0.
God damn it.
In December of this year, it's been 2 years since we recorded the first episode of Indiscovery.
Oh my God, of course.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
What are legal things you're allowed to do at 38? Legal things you can do at 38.
Surely nothing comes into law that you can do at 38 that you can't do at 18.
Your rights at different ages. There is.
Nice.
There is.
I know there's some at 35.
It goes to 25.
Hey, if you have to be 35 to run for president of the United States, but you also have to be American or rich. So...
Oh, that's what they keep getting me on.
I know. I'm like 1 year to go, and also I just need to figure out how to be a wealthy American.
Yeah, apparently you need to be like over 20 to legally be able to drive like heavy machinery, operate heavy machinery.
Oh, there's like stuff about renting cars as well. I think that skews to a bit like older.
But, yeah, nothing at 38. I thought it might be something cool.
What I'd love to know, what did you think only becomes legal when you turn 38? Like,
well, I just, my brain asked, my fingers were typing before I even thought about it.
Oh, that's like 90% of my Google searches.
That's
I love
amazing.
That.
But yeah, presidents. I mean, that's good. We learned something today.
Yeah, I didn't know that, to be fair. Yeah. I have a cursed question that could end this cold open.
Okay.
If you were to run for president, which indie character would you choose as your vice president?
Holy shit, what a question. Okay.
I inflicted physical pain on Rachel.
Oh, God. Shit. Well, have you got someone in mind to ask that
Freddie
question?
Fazbear. Fuck it. Let's do that.
Oh, my
Freddie
God.
Fazbear. Vice President Freddie. Better than J.D. Vance, am I right? Oh, that's political.
Is that even a controversial stance? Oh, God.
I'm trying to rack my brain.
I've just it's knocked all knowledge of everything out of my head as a question.
Too much.
The goose.
The goose. Oh, yeah. No, of
the
course.
Goose. Yep.
Of course. Because, like, you know, they say you have to pick someone who's, like, very different from you in terms of demographics. And so what could be more different than a goose?
Same energy, though. Rachel and the goose have very similar.
That's actually true. Maybe. I don't know.
It would be a lot. I feel like it would be a lot.
You can have Goose 2, the slightly more mellow Goose from the multiplayer version.
We can have Goose 2 from the WhatsApp chat. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Who would you pick?
Oh,
Rebecca?
God, I don't know. Now my brain's just off in a whole other tangent of like which Stardew Valley love interest would make the most likely vice president of the United States, and now I'm just
Pam.
like,
Pam would vote Trump.
Pierre would be Trump's running mate.
Oh my God. Oh my God, what's happening? No, my brain's going to completely blank.
I think Harvey would be a good vice president for you.
Oh, what about the bear? The bear in Stardew Valley? The one that you have to feed trash to get the sewers?
I'd never... What are you on about?
The bear! The Stardew Valley bear!
Did you dream
this? Feels like one of those things where a Reddit community will just decide to insert a new character into a well-known piece of media.
There's a big bear that you have to feed trash or something.
I believe you.
No, you're right. The trash bear is located at the bottom of Cindersap Forest by the spring on your back. How did I not see this? I played this game for 60 hours this year. How am I learning about it on this podcast?
I've got it. I know who I would have. Hold on. I've reached my decision. Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club. That's my my pick. Yeah, she gets stuff done. So
I feel like she'd make really good TikToks. Because you got to think about mind control and getting to the people, and I feel like Monica and TikTok is just like a good combo.
She's good. She's a good organizer. She's got the confidence. She can just, she's charismatic. She can really get people on her side. Yeah, no, definitely Monica from Doki Doki.
Yeah, like Monica and TikTok, and then the goose and Twitter.
Yeah. Oh my God, change the Twitter logo to a goose.
Yeah, like honk honk.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My God. Brilliant. Yeah.
What a question.
As expected. Excellent. Right, we can start the podcast now.
Oh my God. that's good. It's good. Oh no.
Did you catch it? Did you catch my yawn?
Yes, I did. Oh my God. My friend's daughter the other day was just like realized she could make me yawn by yawning, and so spent like half an hour yawning at me.
Oh God. The sympathy yawn.
Did that make you yawn? That conversation made you yawn just thinking about it.
I held strong for most of it because you can't let an 8-year-old win. But like,
no, that's true.
I hate it when you yawn and then you swallow it, like you're like, oh, and then your eyes water.
Oh, it's so unsatisfying. I have to do that at work all the time.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh God, no, we have to stop. We have to stop talking about yawns. Jesus, come on.
We have to get through this episode.
The sympathy yawn. Same area of bodily reactions as the sympathy vom.
Is it though?
I feel like there's a scale. Ooh, there's a scale. Sympathy yawn is at the bottom. Sympathy vomit is at the top.
Okay.
The top?
Yeah, that's like
What's
the worst.
the ranking system?
That's like,
worst, is what I was saying.
Are there any other sympathy? No, that's it. It's just those two. There's no middle ground.
Sympathy fart, maybe.
I was thinking about sympathy fart, but I've never farted. When someone's farted, I've never like tooted back. like a toot. No.
Like fart tenors.
Also, I can't I mean we can yawn. You can't vomit on cue. Well, some people can vomit on cue. I can't. Fart
some
on
people
cue.
can do anything. Some people do like whatever on cue. I don't know, because I'm like, is it a sympathy vomit or is it because you're grossed out? And so you are, it's like a chain reaction than a sympathetic reaction, I would argue.
Surely if someone throws up in front of you, you're not like, "Aw, I'll do that too to make you feel better."
It's really awkward if it's just you. So.
Sympathy is in like, I'm feeling what you're feeling.
I get what you mean.
I'm
feeling what you're feeling because that was gross. Like,
I can't keep this in. You've got to stop being funny in the in-between bits, Rachel. This is how we end up with 6 quacks in the cold open.
God, we do.
Look, we entice these questions out of each other, and then we just wander down a road. One of us goes, and the other two skip behind, following. Like, it can't be helped.
We never question each other.
We never do.
We never stop each other.
We never stop each other. Oh my God. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Indieventure, a video games podcast all about the wonderful world of indie games. It's episode 23, and this time we're having a chinwag all about our favourite indie game music. As always, I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts, Liam Richardson.
Hello. Was that sing-song enough?
I'm sorry?
was that sing? Keep going. Go on.
And Rebecca Jones.
Hello.
I tried to sing my hello.
Rachel Watts.
Oh, God, why was stepping all over this intro? I'm so sorry.
So, a quick question to kick us off. What have we all been playing recently, and are we enjoying the music? Nothing into deep, just a nice warm-up if we need one, which we probably don't, but yeah. What are we playing? Are we enjoying the music?
Well, I'll be very quick here because Yoli is at the moment going through a hyperfixation about Greek mythology, and she's been consuming a lot of things about the Greeks and the Greek gods. We've just finished Chaos on Netflix, and I was like, hey, you should try out this little indie video game called Hades. I think you'd dig it at the moment. So we've been sort of playing a bit of that together, and I won't go too deep into it. Might speak a bit more about it during this episode, but God, the music in Hades fucking slaps. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Top tier music there. How about you, Rebecca?
Oh, I'm going to be extremely predictable with what I'm playing at the moment. I'm still playing a load of Hoyoverse games because there's been like a big event around Genshin's 4th anniversary. So I'm playing all of those like all the time at the moment, trying to keep up. And the music in Hoyo games is like incredible. I think that's pretty well accepted, is they put a lot of their ridiculous money they make out of the way they monetize those games back into the music, and it really shows. I'm playing Ace Attorney Investigations, which is like yes, it's got a very old school soundtrack, I think, compared to some of the other games in the series, but it's got that really satisfying, like, because it's a lot of callbacks to the original trilogy, it segs into the leitmotif very nicely when a character comes back, and that's like a really hype moment. And finally, I'm playing The Casting of Frank Stone, which is doing everything that you want it to do as a very sort of like 80s throwback horror game in terms of the soundtrack is kind of echoing that. So yeah, that's what I'm playing. I'm not playing any indies at the moment just because my plate is so full right now with
These
just
big
like
old games.
Absolutely heaped high with like sort of stuff on the AA, AAA border that I'm really into at the moment. So yeah, trying to clear some of that backlog for the time being.
Hell yeah. And I'm playing a Stardew-like Fields of Mystria, which has some very cute music in it, enough that I think it's probably going to be in my regular rotation, to be fair.
Ooh.
It's good for... I like Stardew's music because it's good to like write to or just like do like writing because it's very chill and ambient, and I'm finding that with Fields of Mystery as well. And it's a very good farming sim. I'll probably talk about it more on the podcast later when I've chucked 80 odd hours into it, because it's a farming sim and I'm locked in, and I haven't chosen who I'm going to marry yet, but there's so many people. They're all so cute and very hot, and I'm like, oh god.
Decision time. That's the real.
That's so exciting, though. I can't wait to hear more about your thoughts about it.
But the music is very good on that. So I hope it's going to... I've been listening to it on YouTube, but I hope it gets just onto Spotify, hopefully. Yes, so we're going to chat this episode a bit about indie music and composers and what music means to us and our favourite soundtracks and all that good stuff. So I think to start us off, which I was quite keen to hear from you both, was, is there like a particular scene in a video game or moment where you remember the music or it like really punched up a moment for you? And if so, what was it? Because I'm keen to know.
Oh my god, yes. Can I go first on this? Because I actually have an answer for this one. Music not usually being my wheelhouse. I'm always excited when I actually have an answer to one of these questions. So the best memory I have of this in any game, I think, is the moment in Hellblade, the original Hellblade, which I will... Okay, for clarity, I don't think Hellblade 2 is indie, but I do think the original Hellblade is indie. I think it's one of those complicated situations. Yes. But anyone who's played that game may well remember this moment, because it's a moment that really hits really hard, I think, mainly because of the soundtrack. I don't want to say like exclusively, but the soundtrack like definitely brings it out, which is the final boss fight against Hela at the very end of that game. And just as you go into the arena to start the fight, a remix of a song called Just Like Sleep by Passerelle Death Squad kicks in. I just remember playing that for the first time and like getting literal like goosebumps, and that's not a thing that I remember happening very often, but like the relationship I had with Hellblade was like, it really was a very like visceral game for me. Like I had a panic attack at one point because the level design was like so intense, and then kind of going through all this with the game, which is, you know, a lot about mental health, and then getting into the end game and that music kicks in as you kind of like face down this final confrontation that by that point you know Senua can't win, which is a really unusual way to start a final boss fight. Like it's meant to be a very empowering moment generally in a game when you go into the final boss fight, but it's kind of, it is the thing that I found with it was it is a really empowering moment, but for like very different reasons, because she goes in, she's up against these like waves of like, I think it's an endless, I don't think there is any way to win this game, to win this fight rather in this game. But the point of the moment really is, the thing I love about Hellblade is the thing that I ironically kind of don't like about a lot of other games, which is it's got that whole, it is just operating on a metaphorical level for a lot of it, right?
Right, yeah.
So it is about someone experiencing a psychotic break and filtering it through the cultural and religious like context that she has to interpret the things that she's seeing and experiencing. But it's interesting because it's a very different cultural and religious background to what we might see like today. I think it's 8th century Scotland, I think, is the setting. Might have to got that written down. But it's very different from what you'd see today. And so it is fascinating the way that weaves in like Norse mythology and, you know, a lot of like Celtic mythology as well. So the way that this final fight kind of starts is with the realization that like Senua isn't going to win this fight. It's unwinnable. The thing that she's been fighting for throughout the entire game is an impossible goal. But it kind of has this like sense of, but she's gonna have to try. And, you know, because that's what she needs to do for herself. And the thing about the song that kicks in is, and I'm, again, not a musical person, so a lot of it is just the vibes are right, and that's about as far as I can interpret it. But I went and read the lyrics, which are like, sort of, you can make them out, but they're not, especially in the remix that's used in the game, they're not super audible sometimes. And they really mirror that because they're very dreamlike, and they talk a lot about seeing and hearing things that are becoming very distorted and very surreal, but having this like moment of calm within that, which I think really underscores that final fight so well. And it's just like, as I say, I think that a lot of games have this handling of mental health that can be very patchy, especially if they're like, and this is all just a metaphor for a very, you know, ordinary moment. But I think as well with Hellblade, it's not an ordinary moment, because she is genuinely trying to process like the horrors of a war that she's witnessed. And that is what has like triggered this psychotic break in her, although she you know, is a lifelong sufferer of psychosis, and that's also very much part of her that is not going to change easily. But it sort of, I just, like I say, I remember getting these goosebumps playing that and thinking that it felt like an empowering moment because of her decision, I think, to keep fighting in spite of everything. And that is the point of that fight, is like, you know, she decides to keep going for as long as she can in the face of this certain failure to achieve the goal that she set for herself throughout the entire game. I don't think this is a spoiler. I think it's actually that the upfront premise of the game is that she returns from this exile to her village and finds that everyone there, including like her partner, has been murdered by Viking settlers or invaders. And she's like, has this break with reality where she believes that if she can get to the Norse goddess Hela, she can convince Hela to bring her partner back to life.
Right.
And so it's all in the context of this realization of like, that's not going to happen, which she interprets as Hela is never going to grant this. Obviously, the reality of the situation is that you can't bring someone back under those circumstances. But to me, that whole fight and the music within it symbolizes this sort of moment of calm where she realizes that she's never going to get her partner back, but she can still go on. And it just has this kind of like incredible beauty to it because of the, you know, I think it's something that a lot of us can really relate to, is this thing of like, your issues around mental health are going to be a part of your life forever, and, you know, grief is inevitable and all of this, but you can sort of choose to go on your own terms. And I just think that is so perfectly encapsulated by this whole scene and this fight and this song. And yeah, I love it so much.
What I love about this piece of music, and I have not played the game, but I was so taken by what you're saying here about, you know, the themes of the game, is that the music, it starts almost quote unquote traditional in that it's a female vocalist, and, you know, it's got beautiful, like almost like gentle rocky vibes. But then as the song continues to build, it starts to weave in like electronica and synthy instruments.
Yeah, it was so surprising.
Yeah. And it also like, it starts to remix the vocals too, right? It starts to like repeat them and just like to make the vocals part of the rhythm and the beat. And it does almost feel like it encapsulates the themes of the game, like you say, but then also does give this like empowering sense to like explaining where the context it's used in. It does feel like a perfect fit. It's a great piece of music.
It's got this, it's just a great song to combo to because of that dance beat under the kind of like choral and like very meditative and like soothing vocals as well. So it works really well on the level of like, you actually want to keep moving and keep, you know, pulling off the combos that are required to keep the fight going for like as long as you can, because it's actually enjoyable to play that fight and meditate on the themes, like with this really cool music playing in the background. And it's you know, there were bits of that game that I found more challenging than others, not always in a pleasant way, but I think that ending is like near perfect, and the song is such a huge part. I think without that song it would be 50% as good, you know.
It's so weird because before we recorded during the week, we've been sharing these picks. So when you put the link to it in the chat of like, oh, this is like a boss, this is like a final boss theme.
Yeah.
I had an expectation, and I was listening to the music and I was like, this does not sound like traditional, like this is the end of the game, like you're fighting a final boss. It's so much more understated. And I was really surprised hearing it. I was like, this does not sound like, not in a bad way, in like a really interesting way of like, I thought, you know, people get the whole orchestra at the ending and it's like an event, but this was an event in a very different way. And I think that's a really interesting decision on the composer's part to do that. And after hearing you talk about it, it makes perfect sense.
Yes,
it really does.
It's such a good ending. Honestly, one of the reasons that I've not played the sequel yet are because I'm just like a little wary of whatever they decide to do next with the story. I'm not sure if it can have the same. I mean, it's not like a payoff, right? Really, because you know, ultimately, I don't. By the way, this is not really a spoiler for the game itself, because it's very much like a. There's the end of the game is very much a foregone conclusion from the start. It's just Senua realizing it is the kind of finale, but. It's kind of, it doesn't wrap up in any way other than her kind of reconciling what's happened with, you know, the possibility of surviving. And I'm like, I don't know if there's any, I mean, I will play the sequel eventually. One of the reasons I've not played it is because I don't have an Xbox, but I'm still like, I don't know if now it's in like a AAA sort of like tech demo space, whether it's going to have the same, I mean, that's what's, you know, wonderful about indies, right? Is you can make this kind of like FMV / can't remember what the audio is called, but it's the sort of like, you know, headphones on audio and like really immerse yourself in this extremely unusual pairing of like a very gritty historical setting and like very modern understandings of mental health. I'm just not sure how they're going to sequel that, to be honest.
Well, if you ever play it, let us know.
I for sure will. I mean, I will at some point.
Yeah.
I will definitely at some point.
So Liam, what's your pick then?
So I am going to crowbar something into this question because mine is not necessarily one piece of music that gives the scene a real impactful punch. It's more so a collection of music that create a scene in of themselves in a way that I just think is really interesting and is one of my favorite bits about this game. So, you know, cross off your bingo card. He's talking about Hypnospace Outlaw again.
Yay.
But
I'm so excited to hear you chat about this. I am. Oh my God.
Right? I've been thinking about this for years, actually. I've always wanted to try and like articulate it, so I'm quite excited to be able to do this finally. Yes. So this is about 4 pieces of music from this game. So Hypnospace Outlaw, as you might know, is a fake surrealist alternate reality version of the internet circa 1999, and you interface with the entire game by clicking through web pages, uncovering secret pages, searching, things like that. So you get to a point of the game where you enter a web zone, which is a collection of pages, and the first link you click on, it comes up and it says Cool Punk is dead. And you're like, what the hell does this mean? And you very quickly come to realize that Cool Punk was a subgenre of music that the fans of the music are now deeming to be completely dead. So by clicking around, you uncover that Cool Punk is a genre that is completely fictional, that samples a old television advert for a soda called Gray's Peak, and the jingle has been recorded by a washed up ballad rock singer called the Chowder Man, who sings this song about how great this pop is and you should put it in the fridge inside your house, which is an actual lyric from the jingle. It's very funny.
You gotta drink it up all day and all night, then you gulp it down after you chill it right. Come on. So many other beverages, which one is the best? How can you tell? It's colder than the rest. Gray's Peak, store it in the fridge inside your house. Gray's Peak, pour it in cups and put it in your mouth. Gray's Peak, quench your thirst, icy relish wine. Gray's Peak, conquer the frozen sun and scream it loud. Mountains of grace, you gotta climb Gray's
So what cool punk is it's they use this Chowder Man song for Gray's Peak and they sample it and then they sing over the top of it. And the first track that you hear is called Icy Girl by Freezer, and it's this very bubblegum pop, saccharine sweet track. And you learn that Freezer performed live at this place called Cool Fest 99. And during this performance, basically Cool Punk is said to be dead. Like the fans declare that because of his live performance, the entire genre is now, ready for the bin. And as you continue to click, you find the first track by Freezer, which is called Colder Than the Rest. And when you listen to Colder Than the Rest, you're immediately struck by how much more intentional a track it is. It's much more refined. It's using the samples from the Gray's Peak theme to emphasize a point that is very anti-capitalist, very anti-consumerist. Colder Than the Rest is a song about how Joe Man Cool from Gray's Peak wants you to drink the drink and you have no choice over this, and it's really important. And it's sort of like a little snide remark about consumerist culture, and it's a very long, very intricate song. And then you start to think like, well, hold on. And this is not communicated in the game. Like, this is all what you will find out just through the music, is that Icy Girl and Colder Than the Rest are two very different tracks, even though they're supposedly by the same creator and singer. And as you continue to click around, you start to realize that Freezer, who did Colder Than the Rest, the moniker Freezer was bought by Gray's Peak, who then used the popularity of Cool Punk to relaunch their soda because they've misinterpreted Cool Punk as an indication that this product should be relaunched. So they create this, they find this meme, the corporation takes the meme, they buy out the name of the creator, and then they try and capitalize on it, and suddenly everyone hates it. So
Wild.
You might think that's the end of it, right? Like that's the end of this fun little bit, lots of reflections to reality in this. But as you continue to click around this area, you discover that there's a new music scene called Fungus Scene, which instead of using samples from Gray's Peak, the soda advert, it uses like cave samples of dripping water.
Love it.
Or sort of like gloopy, shoegazy, hazy musical instruments that remind you of mushrooms. And there's a song in this Fungus Scene website by an artist called Basidia, called Ghost of the Grotto.
Give me a reason to sing your words, to play for you. Will they remember me? Will anyone here remember me?
This song is about fading into obscurity, and do people even know who you are and how you created this person, and now no one even gives you the credit for what you've done. And it was only actually after I spoke to Jay Tholen, the creator of the game, that I realized that that song by Basidia is a pseudonym of Freezer, the creator of Cool Punk,
So
responding to how this original subgenre has died and how he'll never be known, and how it got away from him and the mistakes he made and in the creation and eventual decline of Cool Punk. And I like this for two reasons. One, I just think all of that being communicated through music, as someone who loves music, who's been online for a long time, it is so accurate to how culture moves, to how capitalism will pick it up and kill it, and how the people involved in it will always be able to tell if something is sincere and genuine. And it's just a fascinating, it'll take you 15 minutes to click through this and find it, but if you don't know it's there, you could miss it entirely. And if you haven't played Hypnospace, skip away to a minute. Rebecca, I don't think this is a spoiler for you.
I think it'll be right.
And it might not be a spoiler for anyone, but what I really love about this one little minor story is that it is the story of Hypnospace in miniature. Because Hypnospace is a game about decline, renewal, and how prioritizing commercial interests over people will always result in failure. And you see it play out within this subculture. And it's just fascinating. And like, I'm sure you've heard all of these tracks now throughout this conversation, but it's just a fantastic little bit of storytelling. And when you finally realize, like, oh, Basidia is Frieza, it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite reveals and build-ups and subplots in any game ever. So, yeah.
That is elite.
Fuck.
That's so clever.
And I totally
Good, right?
missed that when I played Hypnospace. I had no idea that was a thing. Didn't know that there was like hidden meaning or even like the music. I remember listening to some of it, but not really like making the connection beyond, oh, they've just like these corporate shills are just cashing in on something that's popular, which is what everyone's doing these days, obviously. But that is so cool. What the fuck?
Awesome, isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing.
There's so much depth to that game, which like I just never knew. And that's just one nugget of that. It's so, God damn it.
Huge amount. When you realize that the theme of the game is actually a MIDI version of a song recorded by someone who was in a religious cult who is lamenting that they can't spend time online with their friends. But even if they did that, if you know the end of Hypnospace, like there would be consequences. Like when I interviewed Jay, the creator, like maybe a year before the game came out for Wireframe magazine, rest in peace, that magazine was great. And he said like, oh, I've spent like more time making music for this game than I have like other aspects of it. And it shows because
so cool.
There's so much depth. Like Cool Punk and Fungus Scene are not the only music genres in this game. Like there's entire like, an history of music is contained within this, even though none of it existed until Jay decided to make it. And the music is such an important part of Hypnospace for me.
So good. That's a very good pick. Love it.
Thanks. What's your pick?
So I have two. So my first one, I'll be very quick with both of them. They're both very similar in kind of like what they're trying to communicate. The first one is Too Late to Love You from Kentucky Route Zero. This was the moment in Kentucky Route Zero that made me like fall in love with this game. Essentially, if you're not familiar with the game, it's following a group of people who are on a road trip, stuck in certain economic circumstances and therefore can't live up to their full potential, or there's like lost futures that come with each individual character. This song, it encapsulates one of those characters' stories. It's a band of two people, Junebug and a cyborg, and the song, it's kind of weird because I always think of this thing from Toy Story 2. Like, with Toy Story 2, they were really worried about putting Jessie's whole song in a kids' movie because they weren't worried that kids would have the attention span to listen to a sad song for 2 minutes. But they took a risk and found that kids actually really liked watching like Jessie's story, and like kids are smart and they have that retention span. And I feel like sometimes it's like that with video games, like putting a solid 2-minute performance in a video game is kind of a bit risky because people can get bored or sometimes it can get lost in translation. It plays such a pivotal role in the Kentucky Route Zero because of like what it means for this character. The idea is that the group are in this like grimy bar and they ask the band to perform a song for them, which is this one. Kentucky Route Zero is very surrealist, so as the band starts playing, suddenly the spotlight changes, the roof kind of comes off the bar, and Junebug is in this beautiful blue dress, and her cyborg friend is like in this really cool outfit. And she's singing about lost love, and you as the player get to pick her lyrics, and it's fantastic. But it's also this kind of melancholy anthem of like, this band this is like a future this band could have foreseen for themselves, but because of their situation, it's just a dream. It's just an illusion. Like it's something that they will never happen to them. And it's just really great. And the song is very sad. And I remember sitting there for 2 minutes, clicking on sad lyrics, being like, wow, this game, I'm like, it's unbelievable. Like this Kentucky Route Zero is slow, but there's such purpose to its pace, and putting a full 2 minute, maybe even 3 minute song in the middle of a game in Act 3, so they know you're locked in. If they're like, oh, the players are in Act 3, we got nothing to worry about from this point. Like, so yeah, I really love that song. It's, been in my rotation for years now. Love it so much. And that brings me to my second one very quickly, which is, I mean, the whole Hollow Knight soundtrack is incredible. My pick, I feel like everyone has a Hollow Knight song that they really associate from the game. Mine is the City of Tears track. This plays when our bug friend, they're traveling in like this kind of civilization of bugs, but they've all been like wiped out. So you're essentially exploring a lost civilization. The point in which you're introduced to the City of Tears is when you get to see the prosperity and wealth of the civilization, but it's a ghost town. There's like no one around. So City of Tears is this very sad, like choral music about the possible future that is now lost for this civilization, embodied in this architecture. Bugs weren't just like rolling up dirt and stuff. Up to that point, you've seen kind of like overgrown areas, but this is the one point you're like, oh my god, this is like a civilization. There is like a network, and it's just such a moment of loss and sadness. And I remember finding that moment in Hollow Knight and being like, god damn, oh my god, like the loss that you feel with these two songs, it's almost like, and I think the music really communicates that. Hollow Knight, again, is a game in which the lore and the story are very hidden in weapon descriptions and charm descriptions and one-liners that a bug says that you can basically miss them. And City of Tears, there's not a lot of it, but it's communicated through the history of this city is communicated through its music. And so I just love it. Two very sad bits of music, but very just on their own are very beautiful and very melancholy. And those are two of mine. And I was just like, god damn, video games are great.
It's amazing picks. I think you've touched on a point there that I think is something that I really wanted us to touch on in general, which is like how integral music is to setting, to tone, to the story. Like, you know, when I listen to City of Tears, and now that you've described where in the game that takes place, you can feel that ache about a future that has been lost, and the potential is all in there, despite this track being quite quiet and small, and it's like that last flicker of hope that's about to be extinguished. It's all inside that song.
100%. Yes.
And in like you made me think as well with your Kentucky Route Zero pick, which is a song you've sent us before, and I actually have listened to a lot since you first did, despite not playing the game.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks as well to, you know, you said yourself when you put that in the vault, like, this is not a game for everyone. And like, that's kind of great, right? Like, yeah, some people might be like, we can't put a 3-minute song in because people might not like it. The developers at Kentucky Route Zero said, fuck it. Like, this is the game we're making. We want you to sit through this, and if you don't want to, you're probably not going to vibe with it. And but then, you know, the impact that's had on you, that might have turned away 50 people, but then you've had this resonant, like this, you know, this incredible connection to that moment, and it's stuck with you. And I think music really helps you carry you over that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really didn't know I was going to compare Kentucky Route Zero to Toy Story 2, but here we are. It just came to me in the moment.
It was great. It was a great moment. It worked so well.
It really did. I like laughed a little bit when you said Toy Story 2, and then a minute later regretted that laugh because you had like made that connection and it worked. They're amazing choices.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember the Kentucky Route Zero one as well as being like, when I got to that moment in the game, it just, obviously throughout Kentucky Route Zero, right, the dialogue options are so much of how you interact with the game, and you are like shaping the game not only by what you say but by who you choose to speak as. And even after like 3 episodes of that, when I was like, it's letting me pick the lyrics, it was like, I was not expecting that. I was like, oh, okay, so we're like, even within the song, you know, it kind of flows really well from the structure of the game as a whole, which I think is potentially how they, you know, not only get away with it, but it became so popular that they ended up like releasing an album as this band.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's a big part of why, right? It's not just an indulgent like 3-minute musical set piece. It is a really integral and well incorporated part of the way, you know, the storytelling continues throughout the song, and I think that just works so incredibly well.
The lyric choices are just varied enough that you, if you want, can make it very personal if you choose to.
Oh, okay, so you do that as well.
Yeah, so it can be about a lover or more like a paternal love, like depending on the lyrics you choose, you can make it like really personal to your own lived experience. And I was like, Jesus God.
Oh,
right.
wow.
Like,
That's
oh
incredible.
my. So yeah, it's like, oh, I left you or you left me. Like you can pick which one, and it's just like,
wow.
oh God.
That's so
anyway,
funny.
so yeah, that's in my regular rotation. Can you believe that? What are some music indie game choices that you guys have in your regular rotation, like daily, weekly? What are we talking here? And mine are a lot happier. I think those two of my sad girl songs are gone out the way now. Now it's like, okay, these are bops. Unless you guys listen to sad indie game music.
I listen
Mine
to
are
sad
all
indie game
sad.
music.
Yeah.
Oh my
What's your bops? Why don't you go first with a bop before Rebecca and I bring the tone down again?
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of comes into the category that we can chat about a bit later about, like, I liked the music more than maybe the game itself. So the one for me was Crypto the Necrodancer. Like that game was great, but every song is such a bop. I'm literally, if I need to get hyped up, I'm just like, put some Crypto the Necrodancer on, because that, I mean, it's a rhythm game, so the music has to be like good, but it's just this kind of like EDM, really punchy soundtrack. I actually have the composer here because I wanted to make sure I had like most of them written down. Danny Baranowski. Anyway, Danny did a cracking job on this soundtrack. It absolutely slaps. So I literally listen to that. Like every time I'm trying to write in a way in which I need a bit of energy, I need it to be a bit more punchy, I would definitely put Crypto the Necrodancer on. Hotline Miami is another one. God, that soundtrack slaps so much. I used to watch just speed runs of Hotline Miami just for like the music. Because I was just like, I need a playlist. I can just listen to someone just playing through the game and still get the same, like, I mean, I guess it was all the gun noises and stuff, but anyway, I used to really enjoy it.
Part of the soundtrack, surely, for Hotline Miami.
I was about to say, that's really interesting, because there are so many playlists of the soundtrack, but choosing to listen to the violence is part of it.
You make me sound like a psycho. But
No,
maybe
I don't,
am.
because as we discussed on the Vault episode, like I think the way that the music stops and then like there's the gentle music when you
Yes.
finish the level, and like it's a soundscape that
Love
kind
that.
of needs to be as a whole, and you can't just take the soundtrack out and listen to it independently, I don't think. So
Yes.
well, you can, but like I see why you did that.
Yeah. So those are mine. I like boppy. Oh, Dicey Dungeons as well. Just quickly.
Oh, that track ruled. Yeah.
Doesn't it? So I
It's
haven't
so
played Dicey
good.
Dungeons, but friend of the podcast Henry had a hyperfixation on Dicey Dungeons for maybe weeks at one point, and that soundtrack is so good. If you like upbeat, like it's not rhythm game or anything, but it just sounds so good. I think. Let me see if I have the Chipcell. Chipcell wrote it. I don't know if they've done any other video game music, but yeah, it absolutely slaps. I'm sure we'll put like a couple of links to like one or like a couple of our favorites, because if we put every link to every song, I feel like Rebecca would have a bit of a job cut out for
Should
herself.
do it.
But
I can try.
If I'm going to link to one, it would be the Dicey Dungeons OST. It's so underrated. Like, it is so
Yeah.
good. What a bop. So yeah,
It's
mine are
amazing.
all bangers like that. So yeah, who wants to go next for their sad music? Sad reflective
The
music.
thing is, I don't only listen to sad video game music. I mean, I showed you guys one of my video game music playlists, right? And
Yes, you
it's
did.
very
Good.
eclectic. It's really like a grab bag of everything.
Rebecca, those remixes, the Ace Attorney and Danganronpa remixes, oh my
Right.
god,
Oh, I
they
know.
work so well together. We definitely have to link to that.
Yeah,
You guys
it's
need to
really
listen
good.
to these remixes. They are
It's really
so fucking good.
Yeah, they're
But-
mint.
yeah.
But for whatever reason, I think that the games, because like the thing is, I'm going to be saying this a lot throughout this episode to the point where it will get annoying, but I really do need to like qualify everything I say here with I am not a very musical person. So for me, like to notice the music in a game, it kind of, I draw out these like odd moments of being really impressed by the music, and it's often tied to either a moment in the game or just, you know, I can tell really interesting music when I hear it occasionally, but for some reason when it comes to like indie games, a lot of what I listen to is like a sort of long OST that's quite melancholy, often from like walking sims. So like the ones that I was thinking of in terms of like full soundtracks that are like often in my rotation would be like the Journey OST by Austin Wintory, which I'm sure that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure we'll talk about again probably before the end of this
Absolutely.
episode.
Yes.
The Firewatch OST by Chris Remo, I think his name is.
Ooh.
Chris Remo. And
Chris Remo,
the Everybody's Gone to the Rapture OST by Jessica Curry. All of that is just constantly
Yes.
like... I was in two minds about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture because that probably could have been my answer to the last question, because it's really hard for me to like pull out one track from, because it's such a good all round. It's like there's so much going on in that soundtrack. Every track is very individual, but they're all just so good. There is the one that I was like really drawn to, the track A Beautiful Morning. Because I just, again, associate that with a moment in the game.
Is that the
Which-
one you linked us?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
just,
cool, cool, cool.
it's the moment in the game where if you've played it, I think
Yeah,
Rachel's
I've played it.
I just remember, I don't want to give context for this because I think this is a bit of a spoiler, but like it's the end of one of the character stories and you end up on a hill at night with the stars and a lot going on in the sky that's related to the whole everything that's going on. And you hear like the final, because like spoilers for Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, but like everybody's gone to the rapture, you guys. So you're hearing
Wait,
like,
what?
apocalyptic audio logs and things, and you sort of like hear the last transmission of this character, like the last thing that he recorded before it all happens, and then this music kicks in and you're like looking up at the stars, which is presumably like the last thing he was looking at as he was like recording this. And that just had this very particular, not quite as much of a goosebumps moment as the Hellblade one for me, but it did have that impression. But like every song from that soundtrack is it's weird to be like, oh, it's banger after banger, because it's not exactly like, you know, it's not pulse pounding stuff. It's mostly like it's a lot of hymns and a lot of traditional folk songs, and it's all quite slow paced and melancholy, but it really does, you know, it's a good one to have in the background as you work as well, because it's like it has that very like you know, that sort of like meditative instrumental feel to it. But yeah, just generally, I am extremely eclectic with my musical tastes, and unsurprisingly, it's no different in terms of my game soundtrack. So I just have a bit of everything on, and I sometimes think if anyone walked in and like just observed me listening to it for a bit, they would probably get a startlingly accurate read on my mental state, which is it just goes everywhere in every direction, like, minute to minute, at random.
Those are great picks, though. Just you saying someone walking in, it just reminded me of when I was painting Warhammer and listening to the Hypnospace vinyl, and I was like, what does this say about me? Like, if someone walked in on me right now, what would the vibe be? It's
Love that.
listen to a 7-minute song about shaving while I paint my little space fascists.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I fucking love that track. I love that track. I was singing it all day today. Oh my God. Sorry. Yeah. I wish I had a
never
beard.
apologize.
That song makes me wish I had a big bushy beard and I could sing as I was shaving my face. Because I can shave my legs, it's not the same though, because it's about your face.
But really though, if you had a beard, it would be so warm right now.
True. But you know
Getting
what?
colder.
I think I have the jawline for a beard. I feel like
You could rock one.
I feel like it'd be.
Yeah.
That's a good song for the Hypnos. Oh, yeah. That's a good song.
Well, there's a line, I've just pulled it up here, and if you want to know too many of my opinions about Hot Dad's music and Hypnospace, you can find that on the website we used to work for. I did a ranking list that was maybe the angriest I've ever made other games journalists when I published that. Not actually angry, but so many people were like, I'm glad this exists, but
there
fuck
was a lot
this
of
list.
opinions.
Like, yeah. For starters, Christmas Pain in Christmas Town is one of the best Christmas songs ever made. It's so brilliantly good. But there's a line in Ready to Shave that says,
May this sharpened edge bring me peace. The truth, freed from the arms of chaos, arrives slowly, methodically. A star in the sky, the earth rumbles, a drone so sincere. And I'm not frightened, I just am.
and I think that's like one of the most beautiful like verses in anything ever. And it's literally a 7-minute song about shaving your face.
It's so good.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh God. Right. Well, back to the sad music. So my favorite piece of music of all time, which is not a video game track, but it's called Arrival of the Birds by the Cinematic Orchestra, which is from a flamingo documentary.
Okay.
Which, that sounds insane, but I encourage you to go listen to that song. I think it is the most beautiful, emotional piece of music ever. It is stunning. And it kind of shapes a lot of my taste around instrumental music. So a lot of the music that's on my rotation is songs that have that same vibe. So weirdly, I think quite close to that song is the first 2 tracks from the soundtrack of Unravel. Oh, Liam's doing a dubious definition of indie, because that's definitely a EA published game.
Hey, come on now. I think we've... Sorry.
We've said Sea of Solitude, so I think it's fair game.
Yeah, I think
I will allow it.
I've always been
appreciate
on the side that EA originals should count, because it's published.
And normally I
copy.
fight you on that, but I won't because it
I
benefits
know.
me in this
I
episode.
noticed that you changed your tune, ironically, as soon as it became convenient to you.
Changed your tune. I love that.
Music pun. Anyway, sorry.
This makes you the bigger person. So the first two tracks are Longing and First Steps. And no offense to the video game Unravel from 2015, but it's like a bit of a 6 out of 10 game that is not really that good. But the first two tracks on that soundtrack are fucking stunning. Like, they're absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
And within this sort of like soup of beautiful, sad indie music, the soundtrack to Death's Door by David Fenn is absolutely incredible.
Yes, yeah.
Again,
The
we're
boss
talking about how the
fights.
boss fight music's amazing. But even
The
just
one where
like
he's
how...
yeah.
Go
No,
on.
what were we gonna say?
No,
No,
go on.
you. No, you.
No, I want you to go. I was just going to say that they capture the sense of decay in that music very similar to how Hollow Knight
Yes.
does. But what were you going to say? Sorry,
I was
boss
gonna
fights.
say the one with the little bird versus the big bird, the big crow boss. That's like towards the
yeah.
end. That's a really good
Incredible.
one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, Rebecca, the Firewatch soundtrack by Chris Remo is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to lose all respect for the two of you here, but I really like the Braid soundtrack.
Right. You need to explain yourself right now.
Oh, I've never seen Rachel's mood change so
because
quickly.
you didn't link to a specific piece of music. So I need you to explain this.
Well,
Please.
it's by Shira Kamen, Jamie Sieber, Cheryl Ann Fulton, and John Schatz. It's a really beautiful soundtrack for a
Yeah?
really bad game. Made by a really bad bloke. It's like, yeah, I listen to it a lot. Elsewhere on this list, Minecraft.
Oh
Like,
yes, absolutely.
The soundtrack that C14 did for Minecraft upon its original release, it just, whenever I hear it and I listen to it a lot,
Yes.
it just takes me back to sitting in my room in first year of university, the snow falling outside the window, and it's 3 a.m. and I'm building the shittest castle you've ever seen.
Oh, that's amazing.
Hello, editing Liam here. After I mentioned Minecraft, I said, I'll talk about this later on because we had a question in the episode document where we were going to talk about something else. And I thought, this is a better fit for that section of the podcast. But as you can tell from looking at your podcast player, this episode ran a little bit long even before the music was added in. So we never actually got round to it. But I was going to make a point about how the magic of Minecraft's music is that it's not playing all the time, that actually you're sat in the game in total silence other than just the noises of the world around you. So you get used to sort of this soundscape, this natural soundscape, and then every so often C14's beautiful piano-led soundtrack will just slowly rise from the background and will suddenly make you take stock of where you are and the journey you've been on. And it's such a neat trick that Minecraft pulls that, it lasted for such a long time. The game launched, I believe, with C14's music already in it, and then they didn't put any more music in it for a very long time because what was there was perfect. And I think they've changed that now, but that original soundtrack, I think, is still incredibly important. And, even though Minecraft is not an indie game anymore, it very much was when that soundtrack was first implemented. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point, and listening back to the edit, I was like, maybe I should put this in. So I have. Okay, back to the actual recording now. Bye.
Yes.
But yeah, alongside that, the Red Strings Club soundtrack by Fingerspit.
Love that.
Beautiful. marketing director especially, and the Paradise Killer soundtrack by Epoch, which again I'm sure we'll go into. But yeah,
yes, love it.
Bangers.
There's a lot of very good music soundtracks.
Too many of anything, yeah, but
no,
brilliant.
love it. Okay. I mean, we did a whole episode on Eurovision, but what song would you enter into the Eurovision Song Contest? And yeah, I'm pretty sure we've covered most of this in our Eurovision episode of the other podcast.
That was a different podcast, right? So yeah.
So do you guys have any picks, choices? And I will judge you.
I have the ability to shoehorn in the talking point I wanted to do.
Yes.
Which I think I can tenuously link this to Eurovision, right?
Love it.
Because I got to talk about Monster Prom at some point in this, and that is by
Absolutely.
a Spanish developer, and sometimes the licensed music is by Spanish artists. The one I want to talk about is by Canadian artists, but still, I feel like we've got enough. We've got enough like Euro energy in here, surely.
Yes.
But yeah, so the thing, like Monster Prom does have an OST, and it's like a very sort of like upbeat, very like kind of poppy background music. And I like it, but it's not something that I listen to a lot outside of the game. But every game has a closing credit song, which is a licensed song, which kind of like plays over all these pictures of like your characters having the moments that you kind of orchestrated throughout the game. Like Polaroids and showing like the term at school or the year that they had. And my favourite of these is Champions of Red Wine by the New Pornographers, which is the closing credit song to 2.
Champions of red wine, we poured all over. It's what we're known for. The fine art of cross lines, crossed for old times, like starting over.
That was a good one. That's the one you put in the chat. Yes, that's a
really-
vibe.
I really, really love this song.
It's a really beautiful song. Ironically, too, probably my least favourite game in the series, but I think it has the best like closing credits with its music. And it really does just like it's a song to cap off this game about hanging out with your friends over the summer and you know finding love and having misadventures and it's kind of got this. Again, I'm not good with musical genres, so I'm not going to attempt this. But it does sum up really nicely this feeling of like the whole thing that they say in every Monster Prom game is like we were young and unafraid and we were ready to start is like the repeating mantra of these games, and it sums up I think that whole ethos of the series the best. It's like it's got this feeling of like being at one of your first teenage parties where you get quite tipsy and you feel like, there's this whole amazing future ahead of you that's about to happen. But in the moment, you're just really enjoying yourself with the people around you. And I just think that it's a song that's worth listening to. I'm not going to describe it well. Hopefully we'll be able to play a little bit of it in the edit. I fully recommend people listen to the whole thing because it's really, really good. And it just, not many of the indie game songs that I want to talk about are kind of like licensed and, that kind of, the kind of song that you would hear played on Eurovision, in other words. So I was like, this is my chance to bring my Monster Prom pick in.
I think it absolutely would, for sure. I'm not sure if it would win, but it would definitely.
It would be there. It would be there.
And if it's Spain, it'd be in the final. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
So absolutely.
But yeah, I like.
In the final.
I mean, just all of the closing credit songs from that series are worth listening to because they're generally all like very fun like recaps of what happened in the game. But that. I just, like I say, it's got this lovely feeling of like the hopefulness, but also the kind of like mellow point you hit when a party's winding down, which is, I think
you've
very
captured that perfectly. Yeah,
very unique to that time in your life before you get, being exhausted by 9 p.m. every day. And yeah, very specific to like the sort of late teens, early 20s age.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good pick.
Approved. Stamp.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
I don't know why I'm being weird about it.
No, be weird. Be weirder.
I have 2 answers for you.
Yes.
I think you'll give me both 3 points for one and 0 point for the other.
Okay.
The easy answer is the one I said on the other podcast, which is Paradise Stay Forever from Paradise Killer.
Hell yeah.
Come on now. Say you don't like me, lady. 'Cause you got me going out of my mind. And now I'm a killer, oh baby. Well, I see you in a perfect 25. So I gotta know. I grab a drink 'cause it's gonna take a while to get a taste for the lie behind the smile. Oh baby, why show me, baby? Our times arrived, wondering about you, leaving there without you. Oh, red skies, where love dies. 25, you'll stay forever. Here in paradise, your red lights, those blue cries. Close the door, I'll stay forever. Here in paradise.
I just think,
What
the
a
more I think
song.
about it, I think that game is the most Eurovision coded game ever made.
I think
Like,
that's entirely fair.
Yes,
Yeah, like-
absolutely.
camp exterior, deeply political motivations at the core. Like,
There
it's
you go.
and great music. Like,
Yes, absolutely.
my other answer, and it's just because I've just remembered this track and I don't know where else in this episode to talk about it. But if I were to be picked as Eurogamer, Eurovision's next
Oh, you? Yes.
contestant,
Yes.
Happy 25th, by the way. Or whatever it is. Is it 20 or 25? I should know. I bloody. Anyway,
thank you.
25.
25. Because I know that the UK is going to lose anyway, I would simply stand on an empty stage and I would play the Balatro soundtrack for a full hour. You know that one track, that
Yes.
dreamy, beautiful track by Lewis F. Soundtracks. And I would just watch as everyone went insane. Like, but seriously though, like, is the music in Balatro 50% of the reason why it's so addictive is because that one piece of music, it just seeps into your brain and locks you in. Like,
Yes.
it's
you know
so
what's really
good.
what's really interesting about the Balatro soundtrack or piece of music? I that's the thing. If you asked me to sing it or hum it, I could not. I actually could not. But it's like it's one of those pieces of music that it's so vital in puzzle games where it's not too intrusive because it just lets you play the game and it puts you in a certain state. So it's like, oh yeah, the Balatro soundtrack. I'm like, I cannot think of it at all. But if you were to play it, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've listened to this for 60 hours or whatever. Did I tell you about friend of the podcast Henry what he did with Balatro? This is disgusting, and I couldn't believe this happened. So I've been playing Balatro. I was struggling with it, and I was like, Henry, can you just like, can you play it for a bit? Because you're better with numbers and stuff. He was like, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And I'll play it now. He played it once for a solid 4 hours. And in one go, got from the beginning to the end and then never played again.
What? Oh, what, excuse me?
And I was like,
Prodigy over there.
so I came back and I was
that
like,
man
okay.
to Vegas.
So I came back and I was like, oh, okay, can we play together? He's like, no, I finished, like, I did it, I got to the end, and I was like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, it took him 4 fucking hours, but still.
Still though.
Because I kept looking at my Steam account and getting all these achievements, and I was like, oh, Henry's doing pretty well. Like, okay, that's cool. I was just like, fine, okay. And then it put me off playing anymore. I was so
I'm not
upset.
surprised. That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
Henry.
Oh,
Wow.
God. Anyway, Jesus. Wish I could flex like that, but I can't. I don't have any video game. That's his video game flex. I played Balatro once and finished it and never played it again.
Yeah, wow, that's literally, I think, a unique boast.
broken
I
a
don't-
little bit. Yeah.
So good. Okay.
What's your
That would
pick?
be incredibly funny, and I appreciate that. Yeah, we would come last, and so you could literally do whatever the fuck you
I've
wanted.
got some bad news though. I did have to look up out of interest, and the song must not exceed 3 minutes duration.
Everyone will be so locked in, it'd be able to exceed 3 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're going to have to like do a proper stage takeover. Like security are going to have to be like held back by a wall of your supporters, which I think is perfectly
What if,
achievable.
What if I'm 38 years old? Do I get any special privileges at 38 at the Eurovision Song Contest?
Oh, no, wait, actually. Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading down the paragraph now. It does say songs
Oh, yeah?
be no
Oh.
more than 3 minutes in duration.
I
Unless
never knew that.
the lead vocalist is 38 years old. Exactly.
You know what? Yeah, when I
Once
said
you're
that in the
39, it's
podcast,
revoked.
my brain
So-
was kicking in. I just couldn't remember why, but that is, yeah.
It's the Eurovision 38
Of course,
exception.
yeah.
You know.
The Eurovision 38 exception.
One a year.
I'll add that to the website tags.
Oh god,
That's so fucking funny. The 38
what the fuck are we
exception.
talking about? I completely
It's
lost my
not.
mind.
That is such a nonsense statement that only we'd find funny. Like, I feel like if you're listening to this right now and you've just heard the phrase Eurovision 38 exception, I assume you had no reaction to that. But it has changed me. Like, I'm a different person now. It's,
There was like before the Eurovision 38 acceptance, and now there's the after.
Yeah.
And we're on
Yeah.
the timeline where that is a thing now.
Yeah. It's pretty significant because it's the moment I decided to start using my real-time research skills for evil. So,
Incredible.
you know,
God.
Damn it. What's that thing that you guys
hell.
were telling me about like the Twin Towers? And then
Oh.
what is it, the Twin Towers?
I know what you mean.
9/11. It's like-
wow.
And then it was My Chemical Romance, and then it was Twilight, and what was the
Yeah.
most recent one? I don't
It's-
remember. Was there another one?
It's from 9/11's responsible for the Oppenheimer movie. Because,
That's the one. Yes.
Did I say this on the podcast? Did we have this
Yeah,
conversation
I think
at
you
the
might.
van
We
weekend?
might. I can't remember.
I
We
can't
might have
remember if
had
it
it on
was
the
in
podcast.
person or... Oh my goodness.
I think I didn't say it on the podcast, but it's because Jared Way goes to New York and sees 9/11 happen, and it changes him so much that he makes My Chemical Romance and writes that first album. And then Stephanie Meyer listens to that and loves Jared Way so much that she dreams about him in a field of flowers, a meadow. So then she writes Twilight based on that dream. Robert Pattinson is cast as Edward in that movie, which fundamentally breaks him so much that he then pursues a course of film decisions to try and overcome that. He then he plays a character in Christopher Nolan's Tenet, and then at the wrap party for that, he gives Christopher Nolan the biography of Oppenheimer, which then makes Christopher Nolan make Oppenheimer the Oscar-winning movie.
Incredible.
Holy crap. It's just that there are a lot of really good examples of that kind of phenomenon. The sort of like the dominoes meme, you know, where it's like a little tiny domino and there's like a gravestone at the other end because it's just like such a huge.
So our domino is Eurovision 38 acceptance. And who knows what our big domino is going to be.
That's not the big domino. That's the beginning.
That's the little domino. Absolutely. That's the little domino.
Yeah.
We are now... Yeah, it sets us on a course. That is the little one.
I cannot wait to check back in a decade's time and find out what that meme
What
says
the
at
big
the
one
other
is,
end.
yeah.
It's going to be really exciting.
Listeners, if you're in 2020...
2034.
2034.
Oh my god, don't even.
Right, music. Okay, my pick for the Eurovision Song Contest would be the track, the boss fight versus Sayu in a game called No Straight Roads, which unfortunately I don't know if many people know about No Straight Roads. It was like a rhythm action game. It was really great. The music was awesome.
Undercurrents pull at your heart.
reason why I think this should go in Eurovision is two reasons. One, Eurovision needs to accept Vocaloids. They need to get up with the times.
Oh, yeah.
And so Sayu in the game is a mermaid Vocaloid. And this track is such a bop. It has 10 million views on YouTube or something stupid. It's just like this really girly pop anthem about a mermaid. The amount of sea puns in this track is so admirable. I don't know how they did it. So yeah, the boss fight is you defeating each of the miniature people that are controlling this Vocaloid. So the mocap artist, the singer, the animation artist, and someone who's controlling the set and the stuff. So it's just a really good song, and like this is another one that's in my rotation. Like it is such a bop. Like it's Sayu summer, like well Sayu autumn now I guess, but like it's such a good song. So yeah, Eurovision needs to start accepting Vocaloids, and so this No Straight Roads was a Malaysian production, so obviously not Europe, but they should make an exception because yeah, this song would absolutely win Eurovision, like hands down, if they had a mermaid Vocaloid on stage who was like, yeah, serving cunt. I still don't know whether we can say that on the podcast. I'm just like, Rebecca's parents listen,
Oh, they don't care.
I said bussy. I think we're fine. Like,
Yeah.
I think-
Yeah.
Pussy and pussy, I'm good. The hard C is still one that I'm not.
Right?
we've only ever used it in relation to surveying, so I think we're all right.
It's got to be deployed like very strategically, I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Anyway.
that is my pick, and I think she would absolutely win. She's such an icon.
This has just reaffirmed the thing that I say every time we talk about Eurovision, which is like, oh my god, you need to read space opera. You will
I
love it so
know!
much. I just
on my
unpacked
list
it. It's like
of
at eye
Rebecca and
level
Liam.
with me.
Yeah, Rebecca and Liam book club, and I feel like I have like at this point maybe 10 books on there. I started reading Acceptance. Guys. I started. It's
Oh, did you
happening for
really?
me. I've started reading
God.
it. Yeah,
I'm
it's the
so
time is
happy
now.
for you.
The time is now. So
Yes.
hyperfixation.
Yes, can't
wait to hear more about this.
Hyperfixation in half a year's time when I finish
Can't wait,
it.
yeah.
But I've
Set
started.
your watches.
Finally. But yeah, so
Brilliant.
that book, along with so many other Station 11, Liam, you've named a bunch, just on my list of like never-ending list of very good book recommendations
Yeah,
you
good
have.
luck.
So that's on there. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah.
Oh god.
I have
okay,
to keep
right.
petitioning you to read this until you read it because you're going to love it. Anyway, that's
Yes,
a
yeah.
sidebar. But
Yes.
Very quickly, it's one sentence, but I think No Straight Roads is due a revisit and a reappraisal after Hi-Fi Rush because those two games are very similar. And I didn't click with No Straight Roads when it first came out, but it got an encore edition that people kind of agreed was what that game probably should have been when it first released.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
So
If you had
good.
never heard of that game but you liked Hi-Fi Rush, check it out.
Yeah, the boss fights in No Straight Roads are really great. I think in the
Yeah.
middle is a bit like a bit of fluff, but the boss fights, the music
Yeah.
is so good. You go up against this DJ who's really into EDM, and he keeps talking about how like, yeah, so my music is going to reach the far ends of the universe. What have you done today? Like he is so sassy,
So
and I'm
good.
like, he's so amazing. Right, okay, right. Let's
yeah,
go.
that
Let's
is
move
very
on.
Eurovision.
Yes.
Very good.
What's next? Oh, games that you deeply associate with its music, but not the full game. So these
Yeah.
are ones that were just like, for me, it'd probably be like Hotline Miami. Like I associate that with the music so much, but maybe not. I don't think of the game as much. But yeah, what about you guys? This one I feel is a bit like, yeah, we could rephrase it a little bit in terms of like games where it
I
is
like
the
it.
music.
I kind of
Like
have
those
a-
kind of overlap.
There's kind of a thing I was going to say here, which is again just because like I am struggling to find ways to shoehorn my faves in. No, that's not the case. But like I was thinking about Firewatch generally, and the way that Firewatch like has all of the the background music that's very evocative. But like I was also thinking, I don't know if this is quite the prompt that you meant, but I was thinking about the fact that there is a moment in the Firewatch DLC where you can like break into this forest clearing that you couldn't access in the main game. And inside is like a cassette tape with a song on it called Old Shoshone.
I'm headed off to old Shoshone, where the birds and the bees won't know me. Man and war won't exist no more, and there ain't no gals to keep keep no score. I'm taking off for the woods, to a place where there ain't no shirts. Don't need no books or ponds or the ponderosas. Don't need no lady or Mary the Mariposas. Can't waste no time in getting there. I'll do 80 down, 80 without a prayer.
Like, listening to that is one of my strongest memories of that game. Like, to the point where it's one of the first things I think of when I think Firewatch, even though it's a moment from the DLC that has, like, nothing to do with the main story that's, like, 100% missable. And that is almost just to, like, have this nice moment with this song that the composer of the soundtrack did on, like, acoustic guitar with vocals.
Yeah.
And, like, I think about, that was kind of the close, because, like, as I've probably mentioned already, I kind of, like, I'm not musically brained enough that I always notice the soundtrack, so, like, there are, again, probably games, but not particularly indie games, where I'm like, the soundtrack is like the standout part for me, but like I didn't love the game, or like, you know, I kind of separate the soundtrack from the game. But definitely in terms of like indie stuff, I just think about that song a lot in terms of like, I sometimes go, oh yeah, that's from the same game that has this like whole other instrumental score that I really like for like a completely different set of reasons, but it's kind of like the same guy and the same game.
Yeah, I think my answer to this, where I love the soundtrack, but the game itself, I don't feel, because like most of the time I listen to music, I'm like put back in the position I was in when I first heard it within the context of the game. But a soundtrack that I love that I just never ever think of the game itself is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
You are so brave.
Is it? Well, I think maybe it was like
true.
episode 1 of this podcast.
Yes.
I did not really like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I think I wanted to like it, and I love the music.
You have to whisper.
But
You have to whisper.
I know.
Is this okay to say?
Circle of trust, guys. Circle of trust.
Yeah, circle of trust. Listeners, circle of trust. Listeners, circle of trust.
Everyone has to get in on this.
Don't tell anyone.
We were we were the same, Liam. I feel like we felt the same. It was like, are we going to get? Are the developers going to like beat us up because we don't get the game or something? Like, I don't know.
No, I think our immortality feelings are the thing that will get us beaten up, not Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. But yeah, I thought the game itself was fine, and it was not what I wanted it to be. But the soundtrack is on my constant rotation. But I don't think of it. I do not think of the actual playing of the game when I listen to those tracks.
That's a really good pick. I'm going to also steal that pick as well because I feel the same. That video you sent me, God, I was bringing up so many videos. It's a video of like snippets of each song from Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, but it's with a meme. It's so accurate. It's honestly like magic, like wizardry happened. Maybe we could put that somewhere because that is honestly such a good video. Definitely link it. So yeah, I'm the same. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk was a fun. I did like it, but I didn't love it. I love the music. The music is so good.
That's how I feel as well.
Yeah, that's
May
a good
I
pick.
stretch the definition of indie to absolute breaking point to throw in another one of mine for this, actually? Because like
Go on.
a game soundtrack that I love, that I genuinely thought was the best game music of the year it came out, basically. But the game I was like quite tepid on, which is We Happy Few. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to that soundtrack.
No.
But it's like, I wanted to love that game. I still have it. I still want to play more of it. Like, but I just didn't really gel with the gameplay as much as with the story. But the soundtrack is, if you ever want to encapsulate like creeping dread 60s dystopia in like a single perfect, like, just that music is just so like the main menu theme is like this kind of like slightly, it's almost like, again, I don't know music. It has this like low-key like sort of guitar twanging, but like really like reverby, and just it's very sinister. And
you had it on your playlist.
It's on my playlist.
I
love that. I love that music. But yeah, again, and also like, I know there's probably a case to be made for the developers, but this is definitely one that's like owned and published by like a big. It's not indie, but it is what I think of when I'm like.
Wasn't it kickstarted? Like,
Was it?
didn't
I
the
don't know.
first version
Was
come out
there-
independent?
Was their first game kickstarted, I think, maybe, and then this was the follow-up they did after they got... I can't remember the details. I might be talking shit here, but...
I thought this was kickstarted, and then came out in early access, and then they partnered with Gearbox during its early access,
Was it because
and now
they
they're run by
went
Microsoft.
through a lot of iterations? Because I was so hyped for this game.
Yeah.
At one point, it was an Xbox exclusive, and like this was like a few years into the Xbox One life cycle, and that was actually why I bought my first and to this day only Xbox, because I was like, I have to play this game. Like, I'm
Really?
so hyped. I mean, we played other stuff on the Xbox, like, you know, the Remedy games and stuff that were exclusive at the time as well. It wasn't like I just bought it for that. But yeah, that was how hype I was for this game. That it's what made me like check out Xboxes, and then it ended up being multi-platform anyway. But like, there's so much
The
about that
little
game.
domino.
There's so much about that game that I love, which is like the soundtrack and the story and the characterization and everything. But I just like the fact that they made it it didn't need to be procedurally generated, and that just kind of like killed the pace of the actual gameplay so much.
100%. That game should have been a BioShock linear narrative
Yes,
adventure.
right. And it was like,
which is what
just
I thought it was
everything-
going to be when they announced it.
Everything around it is so good, but like trying to actually get through one of those proc gen maps is just a nightmare.
Oh, it's piss.
Right,
That game
and
is piss.
here is where I grab both of you guys' ears and I bring you back into the realm of indie games.
Oh, now
Oh, yeah, hello. Sorry. Yeah,
No,
good point.
another day,
Hello.
another day. Liam went and declared it indie, and so I was like just taking that as license. It's his fault.
When we were on holiday, it was interesting hearing you two talk about the double and AAA and me just being like,
Oh, yeah. I think we lost you during our long BioShock conversation on the walk back from the shops one day. I remember.
yes. And I was just like, oh.
You were
Right,
still
okay.
engaging and listening. Anyway,
Yes. We
Next
need to-
question.
Yes. Next question. This is my part to shoehorn in some like a very specific question, but
Yes.
while I was looking up other pieces of music, some of my favorites have a particular instrument that is so iconic
Oh.
that like whenever you like kind of mention it, you just hear it in your brain. And so one of the ones for me is the bells. The bells.
That's right, the bells. I saw that come up.
From Return of the Obra Dinn. That is probably my big one. But for Journey, it would definitely be those cello notes. The cello notes at the beginning of Journey, those deep rumbling notes from Journey. And for me, the trumpets from Disco Elysium, those trumpets when they first come in as you're exploring Revachol are so iconic. So just those kind of just very simple but very punchy musical moments where the soundtrack just gives way to one instrument in particular to let do the talking is so tasty, so delicious. So that's a very specific question. I don't know if anything comes to mind with you guys.
I mean, bold of you to assume that I could identify a single musical instrument just by hearing it.
I will just piggyback on yours because the Bells song from Obra Dinn,
Bells.
Soldiers of the Deep, is one of the best pieces of music ever recorded, and the way it's used in the game as well. The thing you see when that kicks in, that jaunty, almost like manic piece of music paired with the scene of horror that you're experiencing is one of the best moments I've ever had in a game ever. That was if the Hypnospace answer wasn't accepted, that was going to be what I I was going to say. But it's hard to talk about without spoiling. But if you played Obra Dinn and you've heard those bells, you're
You
like, oh my
fucking
God, I
know.
like those bells. But those boys had a bad time when those bells were playing.
Also, another one just came to mind as well. When I was listening to all our tracks and I was listening to the Pizza Tower track, like the one. comment that said something like, bold of them to include a dentist drill in the soundtrack, and now I cannot stop thinking about it. A dentist drill. If there was
never even thought
one
about
noise to associate with that game of panic, fear, it would be a dentist drill. And I thought that was so fucking funny.
That's so fucking funny. Do you know how people say that ska music is the sound that plays in a teenager's head when they've just got mozzarella sticks for their 15th
No!
birthday?
That is incredible. I've never heard that.
Which I think is like, I can't credit that to someone. It's probably a tweet or a Tumblr. It's too funny to be a tweet. That's definitely a Tumblr post.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the Pizza Tower soundtrack is the feeling you get when you have 4 bowls of, that Crave cereal that's just like chocolate. That's what the Pizza Tower soundtrack sounds like, is when your heart is like incredibly, you're watching Power Rangers on Saturday morning, you're on your 4th bowl and your mum's walking down the stairs and you're like, that's what the Pizza Tower soundtrack is.
Wide-eyed, heartbeat 100 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness.
Milk everywhere.
Yeah, milk everywhere.
Teeth hurting because of the crunch.
I definitely remember, I haven't played Pizza Tower, but I've watched some of it. Like, I've got as close to it as I dare, which is watching some of it streamed, and like every aspect of it is like sensory overload. So I
absolutely.
definitely,
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. This is a
question.
question that I really do want to get into as well, because I think it brings us to a lot of the big players when it comes to composing for video games, and kind of this difference between making music for something like film and TV and making music for video games, and the differences that come with that. And, we're going to talk about like what dynamic soundtracks are, or very loosely, and, the god of all dynamic soundtracks, Austin Wintory. And are there any composers that come to mind when, we want to chat about this kind of aspect of music in video games? I mean, do we want to just talk about how amazing Austin Wintory is for a little
I mean, I would definitely have to bring it back to shout out Jessica Curry.
Yes, absolutely. Because the reason that I thought this question was, I put it in the chat, but like I went to see a live quote unquote performance of Dear Esther. So I saw someone playing through the game and someone accompanying it as they were performing it.
That's really cool. You said
cool.
Yeah.
You said you did. I didn't really twig that that's what you meant. That's a really
I didn't realize someone was
like,
playing the game at the same
Yeah.
time. That's fantastic.
It was really interesting. And it's also when someone behind me, so this is in person, was like, this isn't a video game. And I was like, excuse, like behind me.
Sorry, they
and I was
oh
like,
my God.
to that.
I've just got this image in my head of you like leaping up onto the chair.
I was just like, excuse me.
What?
So it was really interesting because, so this person, I get, they've had practice and they together, so they would play through the game, and the live musicians would be looking at the same screen and play according to what the person had it was like a routine. So I'm guessing it was like they look over here, they go here. There was a pacing to it. Otherwise that would be insane. But yeah, it was really interesting to see these people react and play music live to someone's actions within the gaming space. And like Jessica Curry was there, and I got my Dear Esther print signed, and she was so lovely.
Oh, wow.
And it's when I bought a t-shirt. It says Walking Sims on it. It's just, I love it
That's
so
so
much.
So good. What the hell? That's great.
I've never worn it. I should wear it. It's got really bad pit stains because I wore it to death. But anyway, I kept it all these years. So yeah, I mean, that kind of relationship between how like a composer goes about creating a video game track that has to fit in with, the player's actions and not actually knowing what the player's going to do, and how that all works. And yeah, I just think Jessica Curry is an icon. Austin Wintory is an icon. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting and challenging. I think it's a really challenging thing to do.
Can I bounce a theory that I'm just sort of formulating as you're talking? And can we just see if it makes sense? So
Absolutely.
I think there are what I consider to be maybe bad ways of composing music for video games and great ways of composing music. And they're quite similar. I think ultimately all any composer wants to do is create a soundtrack that is evocative, builds emotion in the player and connects them intrinsically to their actions in the world that they're, physically interacting with. So, in Control, there's the ashtray maze, which
yes,
everyone always says is fantastic. And there's a very similar bit at the end of Max Payne 3 where a great health track plays while you're fighting through an airport. I think in theory, when you watch those things play out, if let's say you watch someone do them perfectly, they're brilliant and they're really fun. And you're like, wow, this music, this piece of music is perfectly choreographed to it. But in reality, when you die, you have to listen to chunks of it repeatedly. And that's what happened to me in the ashtray maze and Control. And it never quite hit for me because I kept dying in this quite difficult video game. And you never really got to hear that Old Gods of Asgard track in its entirety because you're sort of like, it's running counter to the point of a video game, right? Like every time you die, you're having to like rehear it and it's kind of losing that cinematic element that they're going for. What I think makes Austin Wintory and equally Darren Korb from Supergiant so good is that their soundtracks are reactive to the actions of the player rather than the player being pushed through a choreographed set piece that's based on the song. Like, does that make sense? I sort of feel like
Yes.
that's my
I
example
think
of
so.
like good and
Yeah.
bad. Yeah. Okay. Because I mean, that's
definitely.
what's amazing about the music and Journey is that because there are no like fail states, there's no ways that you can have that music interrupted, but you can influence and it changes based on your actions. But even in like Hades, like I think all Supergiant games have that layered music built in. I was reading earlier that I
Yes.
think the game engine is like built around that, which is just incredible, really. But like when I said at the start of the episode, we've been playing Hades, like the way that layers up depending on your actions, depending on the type of fights you're having and the severity of it and all these kind of different elements, that for me is the gold standard of a video game soundtrack, is when everything you're hearing is intrinsically linked to elements of what you're experiencing.
Yes. It's really interesting with the Supergiant games because I think the one noticeable thing for me with Supergiant was at the end of Pyre. So Pyre is a sports game, wild I know, but it's where you have a group of characters who are in this limbo space and they're trying to ascend back to the real world, quote unquote. And as you play through this tournament, at the very end, one of your characters ascends, and to the point where your group becomes smaller and smaller. At the very end of Pyre, there's a beautiful song, and the lyrics align with which order your characters ascended and the decisions you made throughout the game. So
Really?
you get,
Oh, wow.
So you get your own personal bardic song about your
Holy
journey.
shit.
Their journey began on a barren waste where the reader arrived, afraid and alone. When they arrived, the book of rights awakened the night wings and ignited the flame.
it is so fucking cool. And I was like, this rules. So
That's
for
really
me,
awesome.
for mine, it was who went first and what they did on the surface and who went next, and like the order was my order that I chose. And also at the end of Pyre, people stay behind and it's up to you who you decide. And so it tells the story of like what happened to them. And it's just really cool. And I think that's a good example of how it was built into the game engine. And it is going off your actions, but not necessarily like in the moment. It's like a crescendo, a full stop at the end of what is like your journey. It was just so good. God, yeah, super giant dude.
I genuinely think that Darren Korb is like a genius. Like I don't say
wizard.
that very lightly.
Yeah,
A wizard is actually maybe a better way of putting it. I was thinking earlier about when we were playing Hades the other day. I was like, oh, like the music in Hades 2 was really good, and I remembered that I think you do start in Tartarus again, don't you? In Hades 2, that first section of the game.
Yeah.
And I remember like, oh yeah, didn't it have like the motifs from the original game's theme as you're running around? So I was watching some gameplay earlier, and what I hadn't really clicked at the time is that there's always like a downtime part of those tracks in Hades where you're sort of like you finish a round and the enemies are dead and you're just like picking up objects and moving through. It's in those moments that you hear the motif from the first game. It's in the quieter bits. But then when you get to the combat, it like this new theme that's like more surreal and like witchier, like punches through the original game's motif. And I was like, hold on, the soundtrack is telling you in the first part of that game, this is the same game as the first one, but when you start to do the combat, the bit of the game that is the bit that's different, that's when the soundtrack communicates to you, this is fucking new. Yeah. And like, we know you like that old one, but here's the new stuff. And I'm like, Darren.
Darren,
like,
girl!
That's incredible. But like, yeah, God, Bastion. I just want to say the word Bastion because the Darren Korb's Bastion soundtrack is just one of the best soundtracks ever made. Like, there's not a bad track on that.
The Transistor soundtrack, all of them
Pyre,
are so good.
All of them are great. Yeah.
God damn.
Oh,
they
so
got him
good.
locked in for all their future projects forever and ever.
Yeah.
Like, don't
They
let
really
him
do.
go.
Do not let him go. But yeah, it's a really interesting question.
Was any for you, Rebecca? Any that come to mind?
Oh, damn! I'm just
Okay,
thinking about
let's
like.
know.
It's okay. I'm just I've been on one of my little like mental sidetracks, just thinking like because it's reminding me of the fact that it's not quite the same. It's a bit of a sidetrack, but I have a real soft spot for any soundtrack where each character has an instrument that's associated with them.
Yes.
So
Ooh,
I love a
yes.
leitmotif, largely because leitmotif is one of the few musical terms I actually know how to apply consistently and correctly. But like I genuinely love like instead of each character having like their own little theme, one thing that some composers, Jessica Curry being one of them, do is like have variations on a theme played by a different instrument representing each character. And that's Everybody's Gone to the Rapture does that, definitely. And also like this isn't video game related, but it's just like where my mind went. If you've ever seen the movie Cloud Atlas, that has one of my favorite pieces of movie music, the closing credits song of that, where the Cloud Atlas, like, which is the piece of music that's being like written and rewritten throughout all of like history by these different people, is played through on 6 different instruments representing the 6 like point of view characters in a very like almost video gamey way, I guess, which is why it's probably occurred to me. But like, yeah, it's just one of my favorite tropes as a not very musical person, TM, is like that idea of like return, especially when you've got something like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture or like Cloud Atlas, which is very much about like rebirth and like potentially even reincarnation, and talking about like having the same theme played for different characters with different instruments. I'm like, that's so cool.
That's a really good point, because if you do have an ear for that kind of stuff, a lot of the narrative And also potentially like spoilers can be given away with music, especially if like you hear certain instruments, or like there's been occasions, right, where there's, I don't know, I'm not thinking of any video game in particular, but you can be listening and there's like, oh, who's that? Who's coming back, or who's through the door?
Oh,
and you hear an instrument or a motif first, and then you know what's coming.
Well, we were talking about
Love
it earlier,
that.
right? They freaking love to do that in Ace Attorney. You hear the music kicking.
Yeah.
If they're bringing a character back who you haven't seen in this game or in a couple of games, the music kicks in before they show that character on screen, and it's literally just to hype you. It's so good.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, every time. Every time
Those
it gets you, every time.
Techniques are great.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the best example of it I can think of, it's not an indie game, but I'll mention it anywhere, is Clementine Suite from The Walking Dead, Telltale's game. It's
Don't do that.
Why
did you do that?
It just makes me want to tear up every time I think about it.
I sometimes have to
damn
skip
it.
the songs from the Walking Dead soundtrack that are on my playlist because they might make me cry at random intervals.
Oh, I do not blame you. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
Any other questions? I'm trying to look through my list. Or any notable soundtracks that you just want to point out that we haven't really talked about in any sort of like question way?
Yeah, I want to. There's a couple that just occurred to me like on the fly as we were talking. I'm just going
Let's
to
go
quick.
then.
One of them was when we talk about like dynamic soundtracks. It's
Yes.
one that I played earlier this year, and I think it's probably going to go a bit unappreciated because it's also a puzzle game. But the Tower Full of Cats, which is one of the latest of Cats games, although they've sneakily gone and released another 2 since I last talked about it.
Yeah,
Like,
I
wow,
saw
guys.
that.
I saw that as well.
But there's
Those cats be working.
I know.
Those-
They don't take a day off, which is very unlike cats. But I was really impressed with the soundtrack on the whole way that a Tower Full of Cats operates is because it's all one continuous, rather than like there are sub levels, but rather than going through levels, it's all one continuous like picture that you move through. And as you move through time, the music changes to a different musical style to reflect that period of history, like dynamically, obviously, as you like ascend the tower. So I was like, that was a fun use of. It's not obviously as like complex as something like Journey, where there's very much like you're just moving up and down a screen and like it segs between them, but in like a very well done way in both in terms of the visual art and the musical style. I mean, it's not quite like Journey where you can vary more factors, but it's still, I think, really impressive. And puzzle games, like you say, I was actually thinking about the Cat series because like that music does have to be very particular, and it's always really good music because it's always like it reflects what's on screen in a very unique way, but it can't be overpowering because you're going to be spending like quite a lot of time on that screen solving that puzzle. I just, shout out to puzzle game music. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's so smart
It's an art
because
form.
there have been so many puzzle games that the music has just not hit right, and I'm just like, no, I cannot listen to this for
100%.
prolonged periods of time. No.
And
It's a
the
good
other thing
observation, yeah.
I was just going to bring up is I don't think that I can allow us to get through an episode on indie game music without talking about Trombone Champ, which I feel like just deserves some love for being genuinely such a great music game. Honestly, it's so silly and it's just endlessly entertaining to play it, to watch people play it. I watch a surprising amount of like Trombone Champ streams because it's always such good fun. But also like it has, sometimes there's something like really endearing about the way that you can't really do a good job, or the majority of people can't really do a good job with Trombone Champ. Like I was watching a video of it a few months ago where there was a version of What's Going On by Four Non Blondes as Trombone Champ, and it was
my god,
but it was like that song was stuck in my head for so long afterwards that I ended up listening to the original song. Like now that song's in my regular like non-video game music rotation because of this Trombone Champ video where it got it so stuck in my head, because it was like, I don't know, it was just this kind of like weirdly joyful, like a teenager who's picked up the instrument for the first time 2 weeks ago playing along to this like completely inappropriate for the instrument song. I don't know, I just think Trombone Champ deserves its flowers for
absolutely
being
that's such
a
a
really
good point.
fun a really fun music game for people who are not good at music because no one's good at Trombone Champ. So,
If you're good at Trombone Champ, you're doing it wrong.
right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's something to that though, like, because the songs in Trombone Champ in like the bass version, if you're not modding it, are like Yankee Doodle, like
Yeah. Oh, this was a mod. This was
copyright-free
definitely a
tracks.
mod, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But there's
Fully
something
mod.
about how like the soundtrack itself is not like memorable or good, but the way the game puts you in charge of trying to replicate it and then just basically, forces you to fuck it up,
Yeah.
makes the soundtrack the punchline. Like
It's like, I just remembering someone absolutely butchering Blue Danube, which you'd think would be really simple, but sounds like one of the worst things you'll hear because of how
incredible.
simple it is. But yeah,
That's such an interesting one.
it's definitely something.
Before we wrap up, and I actually think we should do this again. I just think this is such a rich vein for us to mine from. I think we should revisit this topic at some point. But I would love for you, Rachel, to talk a little bit about Undertale or Celeste, because you shared 2 tracks from those games.
Yes,
that
I shared a lot,
thought were
sorry.
incredible.
Yeah. God, the fact that like Toby Fox made an entire game and also did all the music. Actually, Lucas Pope did all the Oberdin music as well.
Yeah,
It's
he
just
did, yeah.
it just baffles me. The Undertale soundtrack I love so much, and that is another one that's like in my rotation. It's got such a good humor to it, but also is like really emotional, and some of those songs are just, and Celeste is the same. Celeste, the one I put in our chat it's called Confronting Myself. And it's the moment where she meets this kind of like duplicate of her who is like her internal monologue, her negative internal monologue. And now, like with what we know now about Celeste being an allegory for like a creator who found out that they were trans, it kind of just it brings like new meaning. And that song is very heavy. It's very like, it's just an event in the game that is really heart-wrenching, but also like it is a boss fight, but against yourself. And I just, Celeste has a great soundtrack, and so does Undertale.
Hey.
So good. There's so many good soundtracks. We didn't even talk about Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, we didn't.
Yes.
Oh my, well, we have to do another version of this episode. There's too many things.
Oh god.
I mean, to be honest, if you wanted to get like really big brained with it, there's room for a whole indie music in games generally, like discussion as well. Because like I was looking through my list and I was like, man, there's so many of these are indie songs in AA and AAA games, and I was like, damn, that's a whole other conversation that's like adjacent to, because like I don't want to go into it because this is super AAA, but like all of the like Postmodern Jukebox was basically born out of BioShock Infinite, and I love Postmodern Jukebox. And like,
what's that?
That's a whole other. So it's Scott Bradley runs it, I think, which is basically it's modern songs done in the style of various like 20th century, like early to mid 20th century. Like I love that whole thing. I mean, you know that I love bardcore, and it's it's got that whole the same kind of ethos to it. There's just so many places you can go with this as a topic, even as a non-musical person. Again, I'm gonna keep saying it. It's fascinating. Also, like, slight sidebar, possibly not for broadcast, but like when we talk about interviewing, we getting Rachel to interview like game composers.
Oh my god, that'd be great.
Pretty awesome.
That'd be great to interview composers, and that'd be a really
I'd
good
be
idea.
so intimidated. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's why I interview people. Like that's my logic.
You're definitely the one to do it. You've got,
Oh
you know,
God.
but at the
Imagine,
point where we're like, we could do a whole episode on like the music of one game. It's maybe a thought.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
that'd be
so
great.
That'd be really
that would be
interesting.
like something. I don't know. Anyway, just throwing ideas out in the middle of recording, as we often do.
Love
I
it.
like
Don't feel the need to keep that in. It just occurred to me.
It's up to Liam.
that. I might keep it in because I think it's quite funny when we leave our planning sessions within the podcast.
It is good. One last one that I wanted to say as well is, you know, not indie, but Tetris Effect.
Yes,
Jesus
this is one that was on both our lists,
Transcendent.
wasn't it? Because I don't know if you noticed, I had Jellyfish Chorus on mine.
Oh, right. Yes. See, I picked the dolphin one. You went with the jellyfish one. Both very
Yeah.
good.
Oh.
Another one
Is
which
that
I was like,
Dolphin one's yours forever, whatever it is, right? Like that.
Yes.
I love that track so much.
Every passing day, the winds might grow stronger. Joy to light the way to keep the reminder that I'm yours forever. There is no end in sight for us, nothing could measure the kind of strength inside our hearts. It's all connected. We're all together in this love. Don't you forget it. We're all connected in this. I'm yours forever.
And it's like, Tetris is fine, but after playing Tetris Effect, I was like, I've been through a whole journey. I'm so emotionally raw, and the end song, crying, tears. I don't know how people played that in VR. I would honestly.
Have you not
be
played it
a
in VR?
wreck. No, I just played it normally. So
Oh,
I can't
mate.
imagine what in VR. I would literally be transported.
It's
To another
incredible. Just a
dimension.
bunch of dolphins like flying past your head on the first level. It's
Girl.
amazing.
I need a VR headset. Well, maybe not, because I literally only played Tetris Effect on it.
Yeah. It's worth buying one just for that.
Oh, don't. Just bought a Steam Deck, didn't I? Just bought a
Did
Steam
you?
Deck, didn't I? I did!
Oh, she did for Chibi
wa-
Edgeworth.
I
And Chibi
literally-
Edgeworth alone.
Oh, I didn't realize
It's
you
what it
bought one.
took.
That's awesome.
So I was like, I'm going to play... I've been on the fence about buying a Steam Deck for so long, and now that the Miles Edgeworth Investigations is out, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I bought one, and I've been loving it. But also my neck really hurts, so I need to figure out how to solve that, because I keep looking down.
Oh,
I need to,
yeah.
like, weak gamer neck and wrists. Anyway, weak gamer joints. Is there anything else you want to say about music before we move on to the final part of the podcast?
No, I just think that was a really interesting chat.
Love it. And we literally could say so much more. There's so,
Yes.
Yeah, we
much,
literally could.
so much more to say. But with that, we'll have our encore of hyperfixations.
Oh, hello. That's a music term.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not really an encore. It'd be more of a... No. What's like the end of a musical? What's the end of a musical called? What is it called? The
I know,
final...
Like a crescendo, I guess, but not really.
Yeah.
But like,
An encore is like you come back, right? So what would this
Yeah.
be?
Yeah.
Who fuck knows? Okay, hyperfixations. Who wants to go first? I'm going to scream throughout mine, so I'll go last.
okay.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Rebecca, do you want to go first?
Oh, yeah, sure, I can do. So for my hyperfixations, I want to talk about a couple of horror novels that I read back to back. I've actually not quite finished the second one, but they paired surprisingly well. And so, but
Ooh.
not only were they really good reads, but also I didn't expect to have accidentally double billed two that like made a great sort of like point when taken together. So the first one I read is called Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. It just came out last month.
Ooh, okay.
Chuck Tingle, as you may know, is very famous for being a surrealist erotica author who got nominated for quite a major sci-fi award.
I did not know
mostly
this.
as a
Cool.
troll, but he kind of used it to launch
Oh.
his career and do a lot of really cool stuff with it. So it's like,
Oh, nice.
and now he's doing more traditional publishing, especially in like horror. So this is his, I think it's his second full novel that's been traditionally published, and it's about a screenwriter in Hollywood at like around this point in time, but a little bit further through. I feel like Liam is looking at Chuck Tingle book covers by the way he is like laughing because they're so
I
weird.
hadn't checked in on Chuck Tingle for a long time, and the first one that comes up is the physical manifestation of Wordle pounds my butt is a slightly frustrating but ultimately rewarding and meditative daily routine.
So that's like the self-published Chuck Tingle, and then there is the I don't want to say
That's good.
serious. It's not serious, but he's now like got sort of like a horror sideline going. That's a more sort of traditionally published thing. And yeah, Bury Your Gaze is about a screenwriter in Hollywood at the point where AI is kind of taking a lot of jobs in Hollywood, who is very passionate about LGBTQ representation in his stories, and he's being told to kill off the gay characters in his TV series that he's the showrunner of. And a lot of weird shit kicks off from there, which I won't spoil because it didn't go where I thought it was going to go at all, and it was a really cool story. And the second one is a slightly older book called The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, who is a horror author I really like. I think this was from about 2017. It's the one that I've not quite finished yet, but it is about a world in which classic 80s slasher movies all really happened. And the final girl from each movie, it's about like the consequences on their lives, like going into like adulthood and middle age. And they're in this support group together where they you know, they just basically talk about their experiences. But the thing that surprised me about both books, because I went into both thinking like this is going to be like a fun kind of tongue-in-cheek horror sort of, but they're both actually really insightful social commentaries on issues that are very like close to my heart. So Bury Your Gaze really does talk about like exploitation of gay stories and like queer stories, and you know, the fact that like there's suddenly this appetite for queer rep, but it's still very like, especially in sort of mainstream media, very constrained by what producers and executives think audiences want, and how it's like there can only be one narrative, and like does anyone get to tell their own story, and you know, what is like the author's creative vision, and their feeling that like basically queerness shouldn't just be like the tragedy that heightens the sort of like straight protagonist stories and all of, you know, and there's also a lot of stuff around AI in like content creation, how that affects people. And it's just, it goes so many places I didn't expect it to go. And Final Girl Support Group does a really similar thing about basically like misogyny and violence against women, and like the sort of, you know, the way that women are like packaged as entertainment in media for men primarily through a lot of different, it's like they both just go into really deep places about things. And I was like, I really thought this was just going to be like a sort of like silly horror novel with a few like tongue-in-cheek references to like, and you know, because this is your experience. I know this is like properly like quite sometimes harrowing, but always very insightful and informative like horror takes on contemporary social issues. And I think the reason that I've been so impressed by both of them is because we know, because I discuss it a lot, that I like a story that can retain its metaphor and its literal like level simultaneously without either falling to serve the other. And I think these are both books that do that really, really well. Final Girl Support Group is one of the most interesting examinations of like endemic violence against women without ever including things that would just be like gratuitous or like they aren't real enough to be super upsetting, but they do, you know, the metaphor carries through, like, so you completely understand the point of the story, but it is in this very heightened 80s slasher film horror rather than the sort of like exploitative and seedy, and like it doesn't kind of fall into that trap of being the thing that it's speaking against. And it's very clever. It's very cleverly done. I think it's like, it's a very hard line to walk, and I think that he walks it really quite well.
What? That sounds amazing. God damn it.
I've added both of those to my Goodreads
They're
immediately.
both really good. I mean, I recommend Grady Hendrix and Chuck Tingle's horror stuff in general, just because they're both very good horror authors, but I didn't expect them to be quite so socially conscious based on what I read of their... Well, I mean, I suppose Chuck Tingle is like really, because his first book was about conversion therapy, and again was like a completely off-the-wall horror take on conversion therapy, which is also really worth reading. That's called Camp Damascus, if you want to check that one out. But yeah, just good horror.
Damn. Sound good.
Good social horror.
Isn't it like so ridiculous that you saying that there's a book that examines like female trauma that doesn't feel the need to actually make you live it is like a rarity? Like,
Yeah, right.
But-
No, exactly. As I've been going through it, I'm like, there are bits that are uncomfortable, but like, it's not sort of, it doesn't drag up traumatizing stuff in itself, because it is talking about like exaggerated and campy horror violence at the same time. But it's, on the level of the story, this is the real thing that happened to these people. And so that's, it's a very effective metaphor. I think it works really well.
yeah, that's
What?
brill.
That does
Thanks
sound
for-
amazing.
2 more
God
books I'm
damn
going to
it.
have to read.
Sorry, it's more books. At least Final Girl support group, if you have an Audible subscription, is free at the moment for subscribers, I'll say.
Ooh.
So
Oh, nice.
that's how
Hell
I'm listening
yeah.
to it. So little head start.
Good little shout out, yeah.
Liam, how about you, babes?
I'll be quick. I have been playing the Plucky Squire by All Possible Futures, which is out the week that you're listening to this. It's good. I like it. So if you don't know about this game, its whole sort of like gimmick is that you play as a tiny little cartoon drawing of a little squire who goes on these adventures, but these adventures are within a storybook that's actually on a physical desk in a child's room. As you're running through this book and you go off the edge of the screen, it's very much like a 2D Zelda-like. The pages will flip over. And the twist is that eventually you're able to jump out of the book and run around the desk as a 3D model. And when you're in this 3D world, you can manipulate the book and you can jump into other objects like cups or Magic the Gathering cards. And it really plays with this idea a lot throughout the game. I think it's very nice. I think it explores this core idea to its limit. In a way that feels quite nice. I think it tries to do everything that you could feasibly do with that idea. I think it's maybe not as like tight and responsive as I want it to be. I think it's got like a little bit of fat around the edges that could have been trimmed, and I think the actual combat side of it is a little bit weak in some areas. But I think this would be a great game for kids. I think it's a very nice. Pleasant experience if you're looking for something a little bit more lighthearted. And overall, I've not regretted playing it. It's like a nice 10 hours, I think. It's funny. It's made me laugh quite a lot. And it's beautiful. Like, the artwork is absolutely stunning, and the animation work especially. And Rachel, you were saying this to me earlier, like, is really good.
Yes.
So, yeah, Plucky Squire. Give that a look.
Definitely want to chat about this one more,
Awesome.
because I've been really enjoying it. I wrote my review up for it today. I'm literally at the last bit, so I'm really looking
nice.
forward to finishing it. I'm having such a good time. I really enjoy it. So yeah, we'll definitely want to return to this because it's just good. It's a really good game. I'm really enjoying it at the moment. So I definitely talk about that more in depth. But yeah, I kind of feel the same as you though. Like very quickly, very cute. Love all the animation, good vibe. But yeah, it's a little bit finicky in some areas,
Yeah.
which bit of a shame, but still really enjoying it. Plucky
That's
Squire. Okay, and now.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to scream the whole
let's
time.
let's
I'm not
prepare.
going to scream the whole
Pushing
time.
your chair back, I'm concerned.
It's just, oh god, like so I feel like I'm having like a girly pop renaissance at the moment. Like after Brat Summer, I just feel like I'm really trying to listen to more like pop music and more like mainstream stuff, and especially after like the news about Dave Grohl that happened this week.
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
like done with men in music. I think at this point I'm just like I'm over it. So I've been looking to my ladies, and yeah, I've just been really into Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan recently, and they performed at the VMAs and it changed my whole life. I just think both of their performances were just so fucking good. Sabrina Carpenter being like this like girly pop icon who makes out with an alien on stage and like comes down on like a magical like stone-studded swing, and she has like these cool tights, like a little lipstick kiss on it. Oh, her legs look so fucking good. The outfits were amazing, and her just being like wiggling on stage is just like so girly pop. Oh, I love her so much. And then you got Chappell Roan, who literally is dressed as like a knight with a bunch of other knights on stage. She comes out with a crossbow that's on fire and fires it at a castle and it bursts into flame. Like,
Wow.
I'm just like, she's like a drag queen. She's an icon. Her outfits are
Yes.
so amazing. Just like, I'm really enjoying like pop at the moment. And I just think these two icons are just, I mean, don't get me wrong, love Charlie, but like I'm really enjoying Sabrina and Chappell at the moment. And I just, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Chappell Roan. I even bought her vinyl. Don't have a vinyl player, but I just was like, I need this in my house on my wall, like as an object. Like I'm just really enjoying them. And like, I feel like when I was younger, I listened to a lot of like male-centric indie pop. I think that was like a thing for us, right? And I didn't really, like I liked girly pop, but not so much. I don't use that as a derogatory term. Like I fucking love that term, but it's very much like, I don't know. I just wasn't into any of that. And so now I'm like in my 30s and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like queer. I'm like knowing more about myself. And like these artists are like really speaking to me. And I'm like, it's my renaissance, guys. I'm like living what I should have in my early 20s in my 30s. And I think really enjoying it. Like I was like watching them perform on stage and I was like, this is bringing me so much joy.
Yeah, no, this
like,
is what your 30s are for. Screw anyone who says differently. Your 30s are definitely to go back to all the things you loved in your teens and like reassess your rejection of, you know, Barbie and Jacqueline Wilson novels, which is like another thing that I'll probably be talking about in a few weeks. And like,
because her book's coming out.
Yes.
Is it out yet?
It's out this week, so...
They were giving out tote bags with like Jacqueline Wilson made my childhood or something.
Yes.
It was so another queer icon. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll definitely I definitely want to talk about Jacqueline Wilson.
Yeah, I'm gonna start listening to that book on I'm gonna get the book on Audible in 3 days when I've run out of Final Girls. And I'm so excited. But yeah, no, definitely. It's like I was thinking about that earlier, actually, like in terms of I stopped reading young adult books by the time I was 13 or 14, but now I read a lot of young adult books, and just like your early 30s totally are about getting over the self-consciousness that caused you to reject all that stuff in your like teens and 20s and just being like, actually, I like what I like and screw it. Like, for sure.
And these two icons as well, it's like, like especially Chappell Roan, I just feel like she is doing something so different. I mean, it's very Kate Bush, and I get that, but at the same time, it's like super queer, and like her songs have like a lot of meaning that is hitting home for me now that I'm older. And she is just so good, and like all her music videos. I literally today just watched them all after the VMA performance. I was just like, I'm watching this. Watched all her music videos, and then all her like live videos. I was just went on a massive binge, and I was like, I think I love you. I'm like in love. Is this what it means?
So I've also been on a big Chappell Roan binge recently as well. And ever since I found her at the start of the year, she's been on permanent rotation. I'd really recommend her NPR Tiny Desk concert if you haven't seen that yet.
I saw it. Yeah, with the
beautiful.
Lipstick on the teeth.
Oh.
She is an icon. Sorry. She is.
There we go.
She's honestly, I love her. Oh my God.
Have you seen what she was like when she first started? And she used to sing differently. Yes. She sang in cursive, and she was like trying to like do something. And then obviously like, you know, the Chappell Roan that we know now is like, it was such a more authentic version. I think it was a drag queen that told her, you're a drag queen.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you are. But I think
that's Rebecca, her drag name, right? Chappell Roan is her drag name. I think
she's
that's
called
not
Kaylee Amstutz, I think, in real life. Yeah. But you're totally right, Rebecca, as well, about like that rejection of what, because like, I guess when we were teenagers, especially, so like we grew up very much in like a very heavy pop punk culture of like, if you My Chemical
American
Romance
Idiots
and Fall
just
Out
turned
Boy,
20. Yeah.
It's had to fucking
Oh God.
Right? It's depressing.
I know, but also
there's like, there's really something interesting about how, you know, this music was still existed at the time. And like, I used to listen to Britney Spears in private when I was like a teenager. Like, you know, I loved that type of music, but no one could know about it. But there's something about sort of like Chappell Roan especially that is like about being yourself and not caring what the people think. And she sort of sits in this interesting place as well between like you say, Kate Bush and, you know, Marina and the Diamonds, but then she's so like authentically herself. She sort of like does distinguish herself despite being within that circle of artists.
Yes.
She's brilliant. And Phenomenon is just like,
oh my God. Yeah.
God, it's so good.
So
good.
I love
that whole
her.
album doesn't have a bad track on it.
I'm so annoyed because I always get into these artists when literally she's doing shows in the UK right now. And I'm just like, if I had been like listening to her music, the same with Charlie XCX. I was like, if I had been listening to her music like half a year ago, I definitely would have gone to seen these babes live for sure. Like I would have, but I was just too late.
Same.
I was too late. Brat, summer, Chappell, Roan, autumn. That's my life at the moment.
Like Chappell, well, she sort of
Midwestern
suits
Princess
Autumn,
Autumn.
I don't know if you remember, but the birth of Goth Haley, when was that? Can I find that on the
my
website?
goodness.
Yes, it
But-
was with one of her songs.
It was Good Luck, Babe. That's how I
Yes.
first found Chappell Roan, was because of Haley. And like, I wish I'd pursued that thread earlier. It took me a while to listen to Rise and Fall of Midwestern Princess, but when I did, I was like, oh shit, every single track on this is a banger. Like,
So
yeah.
my heart. Yeah. God damn it. So yeah,
Great one.
love it. God damn it. So yes, that brings us to the end of the episode. Episode 23. Oh my god. Woo.
We did it.
So we did it. So yes, thank you all for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, it's contact@indieventurepodcast.co.uk. See, I do know it.
Hey!
And I mean, there'll be an outro as well of Liam saying it much better. And with everywhere you can contact us and send emails. Are we still doing a mailbag soon-ish?
Yes,
Or was that
we are.
not? We are. So send us your questions.
We've had like quite a lot of questions, so like thank you and please keep them coming because the questions. What's great about our listeners is we always say like send us your most deranged, like funny, like whimsical questions, and what they send us are like really interesting questions.
Oh, I
And
love
it's like,
that.
that's
Yes.
nice, but maybe that's because we're so deranged ourselves. Like
Yeah.
we don't need.
They're always such fun prompts, though, right? That's always been
Yes.
like
Yes.
so nice.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thanks again for
So-
listening. And we'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Indieventure is a video games podcast created, produced, hosted, and edited by Rachel Watts, Rebecca Jones, and me, Liam Richardson. For more information, including a list of every game we mentioned in this episode, make sure to check out our website, indieventurepodcast.co.uk. You can get in touch by sending your questions, comments, and feedback to contact@indieventurepodcast.co.uk. You can support the show by rating us 5 stars and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast provider of choice. Some of the games we talk about on the show may have been provided to us for free for review consideration. Our intro music and stings were composed for us by Ollie Newbury. Check the episode description to hear more of his excellent tunes. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another episode of Indie Venture. Bye for now.